All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. We're here for the editors, pre-readers, and reviewers panel. And we've got a gigantic room, so if you're in the back, just feel free to come on in, make this a little bit cozier.
We promise we won't bite too much.
Too much. Welcome. We're just going to give quick introductions about who the heck we are. I guess I'll start because I'm the one who's talking, I guess. I don't know. So my name's Pav Vieira. I am one of the reviewers on the Seattle's Angels group on FanFiction, and I've done some running editing for a couple of authors, J.P. Jaxie, Ether Echoes, Shangar, a couple of other guys, stuff like that.
Okay. I'm Professor Plum. I'm another reviewer for Seattle's Angels and for Riot and similar things like that. I've edited for a handful of people. I think probably the most well-known would be Gravity's Rainboom. So.
I'm Pascoite. I've done reviews on Pony-chan ever since 2012, and it must be about 2 years ago now I joined Riot, which Barack Panza will talk about in a minute, and I've been an Equestria Daily pre-reader for 3 years.
I'm BP, and I co-founded Riot, the Writers and Reviewers Institute for Technical Excellence. I've been involved with a lot of other reviewing groups, big and small. I'm also a reviewer for Seattle's Angels, and I've edited for a great many people over the last couple of years.
And I'm the Masked Ferret. I'm a new reviewer for Seattle's Angels, but I'm also a blog pony and pre-reader for Equestria Daily. The number of people I've edited for is probably too long to remember.
I think you've got a gigantic Google Doc with all the people you've reviewed for.
Yeah, basically there's like a spreadsheet,
pages.
and it just says, okay, I have to add another, 300 cells. I've helped J.P. Jaxie, Colton Gardez, George, Bad Horse.
Lots.
Cool. So I'm sure that a lot of people here have been to other writing panels, and BronyCon has had a terrific history of all the writing panels, but the people who kind of get silently ignored in all this is all the guys in the background, all the guys who are helping and supporting all of those writers. So you have all of your editors, your proofreaders, your pre-readers, your reviewers, beta readers. So we wanted to cover just some introductory details about that. First of all, I just want to get a quick pulse of the room. Who all is already involved in that? Who all is editing stories right now, doing reviews and their blogs? So that's great. Yeah.
Awesome.
Who is interested in starting editing, pre-reading, reviewing, stuff like that?
Okay, so we got a couple of people who are interested in starting to get into this. So we can definitely offer some tips and experiences that we've had.
Hopefully we can get more hands by the end. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most important thing to say at the start, though, is we are not going to be explaining how to get editors.
So if you are an author who is looking for someone to edit your stuff, we're not really talking about that. I mean, there are groups that do that. We have a write authors helping authors, a couple of groups like that.
Overly extensive editors, looking for editors.
You can sort of, especially if you're using FanFic or Pony-chan, you can sort of go and, on Pony-chan you can just go and ask. On FanFic you can go into the groups. If you search, editing or reviewing or pre-reading, you'll get a whole list of places that can help you out.
But not this group. So.
No. That would take a little too long.
Aye. So let's get it shown around.
We basically wanted to talk about just each of these individual groups, what they do, how to get into it if you're just starting to get out of it. It seems like a lot of people are already into this, and then just kind of offer our experiences and expertise on this. So I figure we're going to start with editing, editors and that kind of stuff. And just want to have the disclaimer right off the bat because every week, in Pony-chan or on FanFic, you're going to get this argument, well, I think that, technically a person who does this and this, they're an editor, and a person who does this and this. So we're going to use some definitions. If you disagree with our definitions, sorry, but, we're
It's okay. Your definition is still correct. It's just for the purpose of this panel, these are the definitions we're using.
Specifically for the editor, we're talking about the kind of people who are sort of one step below being a co-author. These people, they encompass proofreading, looking for mechanical errors, misplaced commas, hyphens.
Meat with 2 T's.
Yeah, and they also include some of the capacity of a beta reader, which is a person you get to look over your story before it goes live to catch plot holes or stylistic issues. An editor's this kind of editor we're talking about is sort of the total package in that regard.
It's probably one of the hardest things to be in sort of the author support community, I think.
Definitely. I mean, it's something that, like every story that you see that just, kind of falls short on execution, like the first thing that you see is you should really get an editor. So, I mean, the editors are providing this really invaluable service to the community, and it can be a job that, doesn't get exactly all the glamour, but it is definitely something that's very important. Adding on to something that BP said, like, I don't think that, I mean, there's definitely the aspect of trying to be the full package of understanding, like all the grammar rules, all of the stylistic editing things, controlling like pacing and that stuff. But I think, like from my experiences, you don't really need to be the full package. Like it's perfectly, it's perfectly acceptable to just say, I know what my strengths are, and I can really excel at getting you that. And depending on the rapport that you have with the writer, they can come back and be like, okay, well, like this was great, and I'll get another editor, who can kind of, in tandem.
Most writers will often have sort of multiple editors. Like one editor will be purely there for the technical problems. One editor is purely there to make sure that, your characterization is good. One editor is there to make sure your flow is okay. Like you don't need to assume that to be a pre-reader, you have to be able to do everything. You can, just say, well, I'm really good at, characterization and noticing when it's off, or I'm really good at editing, and that's fine too.
And check too with the author and see what they want, because sometimes the author only wants a grammar sweep and that's it. So you're kind of wasting your time doing any more than that.
So editing, you're going to want to go to editors obviously before you publish your story. You can get them after, but you'd rather keep your ratios good,
Always have to have those little green thumbs.
Yeah. What are we getting into now?
Well, I mean, I guess like
multiple editors is worth finding out. Like we mentioned earlier that having multiple editors, like working on different areas, is a good way to like cover all the bases. But it's also true that you can have multiple editors in like one section, like multiple grammar-related editors, so that like a newer editor can get better at the trade. They can learn what to do.
Yeah, there's definitely a learning curve in this. Like, you're not expected to start out and know how to flawlessly use, a semicolon or comma splices or anything like that. It's totally acceptable to go in and go, I really don't know much, but I'm working on learning. And especially a lot of writers will try to work with their editors so that everyone can improve.
Isn't it true, BP, that you worked with a bunch of editors for Raven's Dagger, and that's helped you a lot, didn't it?
Yeah, when I was working with Raven's Dagger, he's the kind of guy who goes and gets a whole team of editors to sweep through his stories. And this was like back when I was still mostly new at editing, and essentially the advantage to being in a group of editors is that if you're new at it and you make mistakes or you repeat some advice you learned, say, in school, that isn't so much a hard rule, but it was kind of taught to you as a hard rule, then another editor can come in and say to you, that's not quite right, maybe that doesn't quite apply here, maybe you should look into expanding your knowledge of this or that. And really what you want to do is you want to start feeling like you have to go and make sure what you're saying is correct. You want to, like, if you're not sure on a particular ruling you're about to say to someone, you can, like you said, you can go check Google, you can go look in a style guide.
Or you can ask the other editors.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And once you're confirming these things you're trying to teach to someone else, they reaffirm them for you, for your own writing. And that's been a big help to me personally.
And with a lot of these things, I mean, with grammar, you're going to have some limitations. It's like, well, there's only a few correct ways to grammar, and a lot of ways that are either incorrect. So
I wish we could say that was a joke, but that was completely unironic, I'm sure.
I'm really kept here for comedic effect. That's my purpose.
Yep.
But no, like with things like pacing, with things like characterization, out of character moments, a lot of this stuff is a lot more subjective. So there is no one right answer with this, and so a lot of it, it is just your own understanding as an author, as an editor, just offering that feedback and just saying, this is just my personal opinion, But, I feel that, with what you're doing here with Applejack, she wouldn't quite react that, strongly to the situation. And especially if you're in a group situation like this, you might get other editors who are like, well, yeah, I agree with this, or I disagree.
One of the things I often do in editing is sort of, I'll say, okay, here's my opinion, but I'm curious to hear what the other editors have to say, and you can really sort of foster a discussion about.
And the author themselves, of course.
Oh, absolutely.
It's worth noting that a lot of, as Pav was saying, a lot of what is part of an editor's job is subjective. It relies on opinion, and because of that, not every editor is going to fit well with every author. Like there is certainly, like, depending on an author's style, it can be really difficult to sort of help them out. Like, I would never be able to edit for, short skirts and explosions, because his style just doesn't
Nobody
gel
can
with
edit
me.
for short skirts and explosions.
Some people can, apparently, and that's perfectly fine,
sure I
but
believe
I know
they
I
are
won't be able to.
demigods.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought. Skirts is just a sentient typewriter.
He's edited by Imploding Colon, Appledashery.
Day-old spaghetti.
Yeah.
But no, I think, like having the rapport with the author, I think that's just probably true for a lot of us up on here, but we've edited in situations like the Training Ground or Write, where we are exposed to a lot of authors, and then we've also had very long-running established things where we, pick a author who we, either really like or really like their style, and just continuously work on fic after fic by that one person. And, having, being able to review multiple people, that kind of helps you as a reviewer or editor. Sorry, my own terminology.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
But helps you develop your own chops and your own techniques. But then having someone that you are working with, just over months and years, that you start to understand, what they're trying to do. They understand when you're offering a comment, like, are you being like, oh, I think this, or I know this, and you're able to get a little bit more back and forth, which really helps both of you.
Yeah, it's easy to work together when you know
It's
what they're
definitely figure out, if you're more comfortable sort of working with a variety of different writers and different writing styles, or if you're more comfortable sort of, working really closely with just one person. Because, there are pros and cons to both, like Pav said.
Very true.
So if you are just getting started, because we had a couple of hands here, people who are just getting started, like what is the, like, how do you break into this? Do you need to get, like, invited into the FinFic elite?
Yeah, the secret cabal, the Illuminati of FinFic.
Just pass us your name at the end. We'll see what we can do.
Well, we all get into it.
Yeah. The simplest way to do it is to get involved in groups that we mentioned before, like looking for editors and stuff like that. And authors helping authors it's a good one, because in those sort of places there are people who are coming out and they're saying, well, I need help with my grammar, or I need to find out what's wrong with my story, because there are people who don't like it. And authors helping authors in particular is good, because that's authors helping authors. You join and you provide editing or reviewing for other authors, and they will come and try and help you with your own stuff,
It could even be as simple as if you're just reading a story and you think you could help the author to improve that story, you can just approach them and say,
write a review.
Can I be your editor?
Like, the worst thing that's going to happen is that they're going to say, hey, thanks for the offer, I'm all set right now, and I'm not really looking for extra help, but,
Or they'll be really obnoxious and go, what do you mean you think my story needs
well,
editing?
we're going to ignore those types of authors, but no, they might just be like, hey, sure, I've had reviewers or editors. I've had editors for a while, and I've started to lose some of them, and so I could use some fresh blood. Why don't you come in and join the team? So you really don't have anything to lose, and if you join into one of these situations where you got multiple editors, working in tandem, that's how you grow your abilities.
And it helps too, because if you sort of get to know other editors and other writers, then you'll have people kind of say, oh, well, you helped me edit with this author. Here's another author who could really use a hand. Do you want to come and help them out? So it really is sort of, it's almost kind of networking in a sense, but
In a way, yeah.
I'm loath to say that because it makes it sound more professional than it really is.
It's a community.
Yeah, it's a community thing.
Well, and also, I don't know, because, the communities on PonyChan and those other Chan boards has kind of dwindled over the years.
Yeah,
but
which is a shame.
You used to have people who would just be like, I am setting up a review thread, and just make a post on
Give me
PonyChan.
stories.
Give me
Yeah,
stories.
give me
I've got my
stuff
own
and I
little
will
queue,
review it.
and,
Yeah.
So it really is just, just dive
Get out
into it.
there, yeah.
Dive
Yeah.
into it, both feet forward, and just get experienced.
As long as you're polite, there will always be people who need editors, and there will always be, people who are interested in helping you learn. And as long as you're polite and friendly about it, you usually won't have a hard time finding folks. It's just finding someone who works.
It helps when you're getting started, that one approach where if you see a story that you like, but you think it could be so much better, but for a little editing on it, to offer that help to the author, because then you're helping a story that you enjoy and that you want to read. So it's a little bit more motivation for you to help them versus just taking up residence and offering to help any fic that comes your way, which you may or may not enjoy.
Yeah, it's definitely better to focus on what'll make you happy. If you're editing a story and you can't stand it, you're probably not going to do as good a job as the story where you're really excited for every chapter that comes out.
It's easy to get burned out otherwise.
Yeah, you do need to kind of take your time with it and not feel that you have to accept every single job that, every time someone comes and goes, I need a pre-reader, or, I need an editor, you don't have to say yes. You're allowed to say, I know I've edited your past, 7 stories, but I need a break. And they'll understand.
But at the end of the day, this is all for fun.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is if you're not having fun, take a break, stop, try something else, do it differently.
Cool.
Pre-readers?
So, I just want to clarify, we are going to have Q&A session, so if you have any questions, we will get to these at the end, but we just want to make sure we get through all our talking points first, because we're up here with the mics. So,
We have the power.
Yes. Moving on to talking about pre-readers.
Okay, pre-reading, as we define it here, is where you work from some sort of a compilation aggregator site, like Equestria Daily, or a group like the Royal Guard, things like that. Royal Canterlot Library.
Or even Tagalong's library.
Yeah.
Yes. And they're a little bit different in that you are typically not going to be giving feedback to the author on their story unless you want to step out of that role and do it, but it's not a requirement. So in that case, a lot of the activity happens behind closed doors. You're just reading the story and deciding whether it's up to the standards for your group. And whatever that group is doesn't matter if people are interested in becoming pre-readers for the Royal Guard or Equestria Daily or any other group. There are application processes to go through for that, or start your own. There are plenty of people on FanFiction that do their own review blogs.
There are like 20 different libraries now after Twilight's
I would say there are quite a few different groups out there. It's just a case of going to a group that you think would fit in. I mean, if you're very focused on, grammar and technical prowess and stuff, then go to a group where that's the focus, that's the kind of stories they're looking for, or, you really like stories about 80s cheerleading, then, find a group that's focused on that and say, hi, I'm interested if you need a pre-reader.
And if there isn't a group, make one.
Yeah.
It takes like 5 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, you have groups like the Royal Canterlot Library, and like they've got blog posting right on FinFic, and getting in is kind of this big deal. And this was just 5 guys who came together and just like, hey, we want to have like our own curated group and just do some selection of some really high quality stories. They just did it.
It wasn't a case of, the FanFiction elite came together and said, we must create a new group.
We want our own EQD,
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Equestria Daily is the same. It literally just started up as, hey, nobody's posting about ponies. Let's post about ponies. And
then Seth started posting about ponies, and they said, well, let's get someone else to post about ponies.
Yeah, and then Seth said, hey, let's start posting stories. And then we got so many stories, we went, wait, we need to filter these. And then the pre-readers were born from a fetid pit.
And complaining ensued.
Yes. But yeah, pre-readers in this sense are more, you're submitting the story and saying, I think my story is good enough to be in this group, yes, no. And the pre-readers will typically look at your story, and especially in the Equestria Daily sense, will go, sure, your story's great, we're posting it, or no, it's not quite up to scratch, if you fix these 3 things, we'll post it, or more likely we just go, no, sorry, this isn't what we're looking for, thanks anyway. And you can reply to them and, politely say, could you give me a little more detail? And they'll give you a few rough things, but the onus is still on you. Like you're the one who wants in that group. So you're the one who has to sort of do the legwork to show that, you're up to whatever standards of the various groups there are.
And honestly, I mean, that's not about, being a jerk or being elitist.
No, it's not meant to be elitist.
It's simply about the fact, like,
we're naturally
how many
elitist,
stories
but
are
it's
in the EQD queue right now? We've got
Right now it hovers at about 30 at any given time.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
30 is the general minimum amount. And those stories range in length from, say, 2,000 words to, I think, over 100,000 words.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bit of an open niche right now since Twilight's library fell apart. That was kind of the casual side of all this.
Yeah, that
it was
very...
basically, this story isn't bad.
This story has good grammar and it has a decent plot. All right, we've accepted it.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to make Twilight's second library, go for it. Or
Yeah,
Twilight's
like
Castle
certainly
now.
there are a number of groups that are kind of filling that niche, but Twilight's library was so huge, it
was
really
huge.
does need a lot of groups to fill that space.
and just having to worry about like burnout of the
Yeah.
creators and everything.
And the
Because
FanFiction
that was
elite
their
can't be
biggest
bothered to do
problem
it.
was just, it's kind of, you have to have standards to prevent burnout, because if you literally just say, we will accept anything, you will drown.
Yeah.
You know, you get to the point where you have to say, okay, I'm only taking stories at this level of quality or this length or this, that, or that thing, because otherwise you just can't keep up. There are so many stories and so many authors, it's
How many stories are there on FanFic?
impossible.
It's hundreds of thousands.
I think millions at this point.
I want to say like 600,000.
Maybe. How many users are there? There's like 70,000 users or something, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
someone,
something
someone get 90.
Yeah.
Get us
Yeah,
the stats.
Get him on the
Nighty,
phone.
where are you?
One
Come to
second.
Canada, come to the States.
So if I'm considering getting into pre-reading, and I want to send my application into the Royal Guard, like what kind of skills do I need? What kind of things should I be working on?
The Royal Guard specifically, I'm an admin of that. Sorry for not mentioning that before.
He's not just boosting himself, he actually knows what he's talking about.
Yeah,
Ish.
the Royal Guard specifically, they've become more lenient because, like a lot of pre-reading places, they kind of are suffering from a lack of staff. But essentially, you need some technical skills. You need to be able to spot, like, when a story is so mechanically bad that it's getting very hard to read it. You need to be able to look at the
Articulate why.
style of it, look at the more artistic parts of it, more artistic parts of a story, and be able to tell, like, is this story, like, does it have
What we're looking for.
qualities we want to feature? Does it have, like, does it have an important message? Does it have really high entertainment value? That sort of thing. And you also need to have a little bit of reviewing, which we'll get into later, because the Royal Guard specifically does offer a bit of feedback to authors after a rejection. So you need to be able to do that too.
They're nicer than EQD, basically.
But I totally want to jump on what BP said there, and just the fact that does the story have a message?
BP's name is Barack Pansa,
It's all right.
so people can actually find him on EQD and FanFic.
He doesn't want to be
Oh,
found.
sorry, never mind.
He's too elite.
You heard nothing.
Okay, but it is important to understand, with any of these groups, like Equestria Daily, like the Royal Guard, like with Twilight's Library, with all of these, they do have something in mind in terms of a target audience, and they are saying, okay, it's not just that I'm trying to review if this, or
Is this good or bad?
I said review again.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to determine if this
I'm gonna go
story
spray
is
ball
good or
on screen
bad,
every time
strictly,
you do it.
in like a vacuum. I'm specifically trying to see, I know what my reader base is. I know what type of site or group I'm trying to run, and is this something that our reader base is going to enjoy? And so, trying to use that as their criteria rather than, trying to look at capital G good, capital B bad as like objective qualities, because that
Because
that way
they're
lies
just so
madness.
subjective, you can't. Like,
I mean,
certainly
there
in Equestria Daily and the pre-reader group, there have been plenty of stories where one group of pre-readers goes, this is amazing, we have to post it, and the other group goes, why are we posting this? This looks horrible. Because it just wasn't their style of story.
That's true.
So
Shall we go
you're going to want to seek out these kinds of people, obviously, when your story is as polished as you can make it, and then you may or may not have to polish it a little more.
That is worth pointing out. Equestria Daily it's for like posting these stories. It's not to be used for a review group. You need to find out if your story is as good as you can make it before you send it.
Equestria Daily is sort of like the final step of publishing your stuff. Like, you get it on FanFic, you get reviews, you get a pick in it, and then if you want to try and do more, you can submit to Equestria Daily. But it's not meant to be like,
It's
I
not a
wrote a
review
story,
group.
this is great. EQD is the first place I'm sending it.
Yeah.
Because like with all these groups that we're going through, the editors, the pre-readers, like all of these are different tools in your toolbox. And not to say that we up here on stage are tools, but
Well, not all of us are tools.
but you need to understand. You're not going. You're not going to hammer something in with a screwdriver. You need to understand, the strengths and weaknesses of each of the people and use them for the right purposes. Because if you're going to go to EQD and be like, edit my story,
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to work.
Pre-readers are the tool to get yourself more attention.
Yeah, Equestria Daily and the Royal Guard and the Royal Canterbury Library should purely
80s
be...
cheerily compendium and whatever else.
Yeah, exactly. Is
Yeah.
purely meant to be I have written a story, I think it's quite good, I've polished everything I can, I would like to get some more eyeballs on it, and I specifically want to appeal to these, like the target audience of these groups. So it's also really worth looking at what sort of group they're appealing to. Like, if you're going to write a story about how Sweetie Belle falls into a pit and then, discovers a new magical land of Narnia, you're probably not going to want to submit that to the realistic shipping folder.
Yeah,
I mean, even if she falls in love with a sentient tree stump, they're probably still going to complain.
yeah.
I ship it.
Yes, but you shipped Philestia.
It's true. No standards.
He said it, not me.
Do we want to
Anyway.
move on to
Reviews?
Reviewing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Finally touched
so,
reviews for
Just
Bob.
after saying Equestria Daily isn't about reviews, let's actually talk about
What are reviews?
what are reviews. Well, there are many different kinds of... I'll stop that. There are many different kinds of reviews. It's worth noting that one person's review can be absolutely wildly different from another person's review, and it's important to notice that none of them are actually wrong, because it depends on what you're aiming for. What most people would consider a review is a critical analysis intended for the author. Like this is where the reviewer will go in the comment section or send them a private message and tell them, here's some stuff you did well, I liked it. Here's some stuff you did badly, here's how you can improve upon it. And the most important bit being that here's how you can improve. That's there to get the author to be the best thing they can be. It's just there to make everything better for everyone. It's
Yeah.
good in general.
It would be a very detailed critique. It'll sort of, give examples of what you did well, give examples of what you didn't do so hot, and, suggestions on how to improve and what.
Help the author to learn.
Because if you're not giving them the suggestions at the end, if you're just saying this is bad and you should feel bad, that's not
not
that's
People
not a
are
review.
just
That's-
going to
that's just
tune you
being
out,
nice, yeah.
People who go, this is stupid, are a dime a dozen, and nobody listens to them because
You're not
why
saying
would you?
why
Like,
is it stupid.
this
Yeah.
is stupid. Well, do you think it's stupid because you disagree with how I wrote a character, or because you dislike my writing style, or
Just
because
negative
you think
opinions
that
in the
English,
vacuum are useless.
you
know?
think American English is the only way to spell? Like, there's
Shining
some-
armor has a U in it.
Yes, as does color.
Its color is white. Yes. The second kind of review that I'm talking about is sort of like a recommendation review. Like it's what Seattle's Angels does. It's where you read a story, you say whether or not it's good, whether you can recommend it, and if you can or can't recommend it, you need to explain why you've got that opinion.
John
Like
Perry's stuff, I think, is
John
similar to
Perry's
that.
stuff as the feature box and Fic Flop and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Present Perfect's reviews.
Present Perfect.
Yeah,
yeah, Chris
are
did some
tend to
stuff
be a
as
little
yeah.
more tighter, a little more concise.
And the general gist of this is you need to help a potential reader decide if they want to read it, right? It's all well and good saying, I didn't like it, but if you don't explain why you didn't like it, then that means absolutely nothing. Because at the end of the day, basically everything is subjective. I like dark stuff. I love dystopias. Ferret hates sad things. Stuff like that. Like, if she reads a sad story, it could be a really good sad story that a person who likes sad stories would love, but she didn't like it. And if a review doesn't explain that it's just because she doesn't like sad stories and tragedies, then it's a useless review. You
And
know?
I just do the sensible thing of not reading stuff
Yeah.
I don't like. It's mostly, it comes down to who you're writing the review for. If you're writing it for the author, then you need to focus on explaining to the author why you liked or didn't like what you did and how they can improve it.
How they
at
can
the very
improve being
least.
the main thing. Yeah.
I mean, you don't necessarily have to say, this is how I think you can improve if you don't know. Like, if you just say, I felt this voice felt really off, but you can't really articulate exactly why, that's okay, because there is a lot of stuff that's subjective. Is, I don't like this, and I can't really tell you why, I just know I didn't.
EQD has a problem with that, don't they? Where like
Yeah.
there's a story and nobody really likes it, but there's nothing technically
And
wrong
those
with
are
it.
the worst stories to review,
Yeah,
because it feels
it's pretty
so
horrible.
mean to write back to an author, go, I'm sorry, I don't think this is very good, and I can't tell you why.
Yeah, it's not great. And then the third kind of review I want to talk about is basically Yahtzee, zero punctuation style reviews, where it's like, it's not for the author. Yahtzee's not going to help anyone get better at making video games, and it's
He's purely
Yahtzee's
doing
reviews.
it for comedy, for entertainment value.
They're
There's not
for
a lot to take away from
They're
it.
for the reviewer's audience. They're not for the potential readership. They're not for the author themselves. They're for a group who is following the reviewer around for entertainment.
And that's not to say he doesn't bring up good
Oh, yeah.
points and things, but his focus is, as he says, I am a critic.
Mm-hmm.
I critique things. So all he'll point out typically is the negative. I think it's been quoted as saying, if I didn't point something out, that means it was good and I liked it.
Yeah,
But
I think he's actually
since that's
like
a pretty
three
nebulous
video games.
idea,
Yeah. Like, it's worth noting that the example being Yahtzee, he never makes anything up. Every single
Yeah.
point up he brings up is valid, but universally they are exaggerated for comedic effect. They are not accurate.
he's not literally, his spine is not going to come flying out the back of his head just
No.
because he really disliked a cutscene. He's
Even though he
obviously not
says it
dead.
will, it doesn't. You know?
Yeah, it's meant to be hyperbole. It's meant to be over-exaggerated and not taken
Mm-hmm.
seriously.
It's there for amusement at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the hardest one to deal with as an author, because so many of these rely on focusing on the negative things.
Yeah,
Yes, as
rage
the
reviews
author,
are
you
like
need
that
to
too.
understand where the reviewer's coming from, and if it's a reviewer that you have not read their stuff before, research it a bit, read some other of his reviews that he's posted so you can get a
it's a
flavor
group,
for
check
what his
out
anger
Yeah,
is.
it's worth
Yes.
double checking just so you don't sort of read this really mean review and feel awful
Yeah.
without looking and realizing that no, he does that to everybody. That's just how they review.
Yeah. Also, I just want to point out that scores on reviews are terrible, and I will hate you if you ever do them.
Please don't do
Please don't do
scores.
scores.
It is
Like-
very subjective.
You're
Yeah.
allowed to do scores.
You're allowed to do scores if it's how much would I recommend this. If you're doing this story is 7 out of 10, please stop.
Even then, how much I would recommend it is really nebulous. Because at the end of the day, there's some objective stuff in fiction, like this comma can be in the wrong place. That is objectively wrong.
Yeah, or this spelling is incorrect, regardless
But
of which language you're using.
It is hugely subjective how much that matters, right? Someone could say, I think this is spelt wrong, but the rest of the story was good enough that I can ignore it, and that's perfectly fine for them. But someone else who really hates it when someone spells can't without an apostrophe will get really infuriated by
Because that's
this
a totally
and give it a
different
1
word.
out of 10. Just 1 out
Yeah.
of 10, you missed an apostrophe, done. Too much water.
And table flip, walk away.
Yeah, it's done. And that doesn't really mean anything to anyone else. And even if, a lot of what people say is, so long as it's consistent, it's just, you keep a track on that reviewer and you base their scores based on what other things they've done, even that doesn't make sense, because a reviewer, their opinion can change all the time. Everyone's opinions change all the time. Tomorrow I might find myself really enjoying random Pinkie Pie comedies, but right now I absolutely loathe them. Good Lord. So, for me, giving a 1 out of 10 today might be an 8 out of 10 tomorrow. It's an extreme example, but things change,
And I mean, comparing the different groups that we've talked about, I think that reviewing is definitely the easiest to break into the scene.
You can start anywhere.
Because
you can start
reviewing is purely, I read a story and here's what I thought of it. It's kind of like doing a book report for class, but there's no word minimum.
You can
Yeah.
put it on your own FanFic blog. You can
Yeah.
start a Tumblr. You can just any sort of website.
Put
just
it
to-
on YouTube if you want.
You can
reviews.
name it after Charlie's Angels.
For the
And a
same,
good way of getting into
For
that
someone who's
too
not
is
around
if
anymore.
there's somebody who does reviews, say like Chris's blog, that you like, and you consistently chime in the comments and give your opinions and start discussions, then more people will say, this guy has intelligent things to say. They'll come look for you on FanFiction and see if you have review blogs up.
A tip I would like to give, it's one of the things that basically everyone recommends to authors as they're developing is read other stories. And that is very valid advice. It is very important to read other stories, like stories that you want to be like emulate the style of. Read stories that are good. But it's important to note the best way to do that is to read it twice. The first time you read it as a reader, you read the story that you want to read here, you go through it, you enjoy it. Second time, you need to put yourself in a mindset where you're looking for mistakes. You're trying to analyze what they did right, what they did wrong, what they can improve upon, how they can improve upon it. And the second time is the reviewer's mindset,
That's where you're looking at it and going, okay, what part
When
did
you're
I
being
like?
critical.
Why did I like this? What part didn't I like? Why didn't I like this part?
I liked this character. Why? maybe because they punched rarity a bit. I don't know. You know?
And I mean, you're going to get different, like, when you're going through all that different sweeps, especially, hopping back to editing, when I'm doing this, like, I like to give a lot of just, stream of consciousness feedback, because this is just my gut reaction of how it goes. And then, I might be like, why is this character doing this? This doesn't make any sense. I get to the end where we finally have the twist, and I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense. But, by giving that stream of consciousness feedback, the author is seeing, like, in real time, how I am thinking and how I'm reacting to the scene, and then, when I have the big aha moment at the end, they understand, where that's coming from contextually.
Whether it worked or not.
Yeah, seeing whether it worked.
To mention back to editing really briefly, I think a really important thing that a lot of editors forget is don't just comment on the negative.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if they made a misspelling somewhere, absolutely point it out. But if they wrote, a really amazing sentence, tell them that. Like, don't just...
Or they really did a character well.
Yeah, exactly.
Same with
Like,
reviewing.
point out the stuff that you really like as well as the stuff that you don't like, so they do get that sort of balanced mix, because it kind of softens the blow a little. Like, if you go into a document and there's nothing but you did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong and this wrong, it's really discouraging.
Yeah.
But if it's more like, you didn't do this so great, but this was really good, but you need to work on this, but this was amazing.
And plus, for any of us who are both, in the support side as well as doing the actual writing, we know that we get really invested in this one scene, and you're just like, oh man, I feel this is really powerful, and I hope this comes across. And so when you get an editor or a reviewer or just
The
anyone,
only thing they've said is you spelt this wrong.
yeah, if they're not reacting to it, you're like, okay, so did this scene work? But if they come in and they're just like, oh wow, this was really powerful, you can just be like, yes, I totally nailed
And
this.
you
Yeah,
don't
I
want
managed
to
to
go
get
to your
that
editor
reaction
and
I
just
wanted.
ask, did you like this bit?
I want to take it back a little bit to being a reviewer starting out. As they said, it's easier to break into reviewing than most of these other fields, but on the same token, it's harder to get feedback as a
review.
person in this field. Like, you can have reviews on your blog, but unless you're already well known, you might not get much readership, you might not get much response on it. And also, because you're directly, well, depending on the type of review you're doing, you could be directly affecting the story. Like, you could be saying to an author, essentially, here's how you could be better, or you could be saying to their potential readers, this particular story isn't worth reading. It can get a little more, the reactions to that can tend towards the more hostile.
Yeah.
You can sort of read a story that everybody else loves and go, I really didn't enjoy this, and you will occasionally end up with people who, are screaming at the keyboard and going, how did you hate this? You're horrible, blah, 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 blah. And so you do have to kind of develop slightly thicker skin for
Normally,
that.
it's not even the author who says that. It's just another
No,
reader who
it's-
comes along and is angry at
Oftentimes,
you
it's
for not
not
liking
the author.
it.
I've seen plenty of times where the author goes, thank you, that was very meaningful feedback, I'll think about it, and some reader of theirs has come along and thinks that they're doing them a favor by attacking this other person, and
Yeah.
the poor author is kind of going, I didn't want you to do that.
Pro
But they
tip,
don't have any
don't
control.
attack other people.
Yes. If you disagree with someone, that's great. You can politely disagree with someone without saying they're a horrible person and they should have never been born.
And all of these conversations can get heated because the author has put a lot of time and effort into the story. You have fellow fans of the story who are really invested in this. This is like one of their top 5 favorite stories on the site. But really, like all of you are coming together to discuss the writing as a craft, to discuss, this piece of art as an independent work. It's not about, calling the author a dummy. It's not about saying that all of the fans of this are, don't have any taste. It really is, just saying, how I think this piece worked, how I reacted to it on an emotional level, and what kind of things can be done to improve that. Especially when you have these stories that have such a strong focus, and you really like the premise, you really like the idealization, but then on the execution it just falls a little bit short, and with just a little bit of tweaking it could just really be that much better.
It's worth noting that while we're saying that all of these things are worth talking about, and the author should try to develop the thick skin against the review should, there is no call ever in a review or editing or anything to directly insult the author.
Even if you're being Yahtzee, you don't need to be like,
Yeah, you can directly say negative things about the story, absolutely, but don't say negative things about the author, because that is just spread
The
out.
author is not their story.
Yeah.
It is a separate thing from them. They are not their characters. Even if it's a self-insert, it's still not them. It's usually a fantasy of them.
Yeah. But that said, feel free to absolutely tear their self-insert apart.
Yes.
Go for it.
As long as you can acknowledge
Limbs
at
on
the
the
end of the
walls.
day, it's meant to be in good fun. I mean, some people are going to take it a bit more personally, and that
Unfortunately,
happens. And you just have to sort of try and remember that we are, as Pav said, we are all interested in the craft of writing, and that while sometimes you're going to hear stuff you don't want to hear, you do just have to kind of take a breath and acknowledge, okay, that's their opinion. And yeah, maybe they make some good points, or maybe they've suggested something that's totally antithetical to how you normally write. You don't have to listen to every piece of feedback you get. You are allowed to pick and choose. But if people are consistently saying that your characterization needs work, you probably need to think about your characterization. One person complains, you can listen to it and sort of, it's that whole, if one person says it, they're crazy. If 50 people say it, you might be crazy.
And this is why developing a rapport is so important, because, you know, I've had, you know, like my first fic, the first couple of chapters, I had people telling me, this is garbage, you need to, you know, don't even continue writing this, you know.
Die in a fire.
Die in a fire,
Yes.
that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, okay, you know, obvious troll is obvious.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I had, you know, someone who I really trusted and who I had worked with, you know, editing for me for a while, and he was just like, this chapter is not working, and it's not working for ABC. You need to rewrite this. And I was able to look
worth
at those
listening
two, you know, very similar topics, but because of, you know, the rapport, because of understanding, you know, what critiques he was offering, I could be like, yeah, I really need to junk this chapter. It's just not working. And then, you know, I rewrite it, and it's that much better because of it.
I hate to be dismissive, but I do tend to very strongly feel if you dislike something, give an example of why you dislike
Yes,
it. Because if you just
absolutely.
say, I don't like this, it is incredibly easy for the author to just go, oh, you're just being a troll and I don't have
Yeah.
to listen to you. Whereas you might actually have genuinely good feedback, but if you're not giving them an example of why it's not very good, there's nothing useful and they can just brush you
This
off.
isn't necessarily needed in like the Yahtzee style reviewing,
Yeah.
and it's good but not needed in the like recommendation style reviewing. But it is 100% essential if you're aiming a review at the author himself.
And
Yeah.
that's the entire thing, is that all those different types have different target audiences.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're doing what is most useful for that target.
Yeah, like in author-centric review, you might need to be a little more like an editor. A reader, a potential reader-centric review, you're probably going to be a little bit more like a pre-reader. And the Yahtzee style review is just something
probably going
else.
to be
You're
a
just
bit more
basically
niche.
trying to get the biggest laughs you can.
Yeah.
So it really is figure out who you want to be writing for. Do you want to be writing for people who are really focused on background stuff and world building, or do you really want to focus on writing about characterization? Because if you write reviews and your first 30 reviews are all focused on sort of background characters and how they interact, and then your 31st review is all about how the main characters interact, your audience is going to be really confused.
And if you tell the author, here's something that's wrong, here's what I think would fix it, they may not agree that that's the best way of fixing it. They may come up with a different solution that works too, but the point is that you've pointed out something that didn't quite work and you've made them think about it.
You started dialogue, really.
Okay, well, on that, I mean, I think that covers a lot of the prepared material we have, and we got plenty of time, so let's hit it up with the Q&A. I believe we have a wandering mic somewhere
I thought
back
something
here.
to do with
or-
the
We're
queue.
going to form lines.
We're,
Really?
Oh, yeah.
we're going to form a line. I don't know what's going
I
on
don't.
here. Okay.
Form a line, that
Yeah,
works.
Form a line.
yeah, why don't we do it just
The
like...
staffers run around enough as it is. We'll let them take a break.
Somewhere down there.
Oh, she's
we're
bringing
coming
one
in
up.
from the
It's
back.
coming.
Okay, so yeah, if you have any questions, go ahead, line up on this aisle right here, and we'll go ahead and take care of
See what
them.
we can do.
And one
Yeah.
quick thing I'll mention first is, as an editor or reviewer or whatever you're doing to help the author, it's perfectly fine for you to ask the author for some acknowledgement for it, be it in an author's note or something.
Absolutely.
From the editor's side, it can be very frustrating when
They
your
don't
efforts
respond.
go unacknowledged or they
Yeah.
don't
For a
answer you or
reviewer.
anything.
It really is. You need to have that communication between
Yeah.
both groups, because if you spend 3 hours doing really detailed, involved editing work, and the author just kind of comes back and goes,
Okay.
it really hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
First question.
All right.
Okay.
So how do you know when you need to step back? And because the biggest thing that I've found over the years as editing for friends and other things online is you also want to be able to let the author grow himself. And if you spend too much time acting as more or less a training wheel for them, they themselves never really can break away from you, and then you are now their stipulation. They can't write without a good editor, or you want them to break away from that. So when you know you need to step away from going, this is how you fix everything, and you start kind of just letting them figure it out on their own.
You kind of have to develop a sense of how much they're relying on you. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't want to get into a situation where you're fixing the problems for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to say, here's what the problem is, here's some suggestions of how to fix it, here's why it's wrong, here's an example of what I might do to fix it, but I'm only pointing it out in this one instance. You sweep through the story, and I may mark for you, here's some other spots I saw it, but you fix them yourself.
Yeah, you don't ever fix something for them. You make some suggestions, and they apply what they're saying in those suggestions to their own story. And it's worth noting, like, if an author keeps making the same mistakes, like story in, story out, eventually it may just be worth just saying, look, you're clearly not caring about fixing this story. You're just using me as like some sort of like better version of spell check.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that.
In which case, something needs to change, or
Yeah.
I'm going to go do something else because I deserve to be paid more than spell check.
Well, and you know, it's also, you know, like along that line of, you know, helping the author grow, you know, like if they're constantly making mistakes with like semicolon usage, send them some links, you know, like give them some documentation and just, you know, help them to understand and learn more.
But it's important that they must look this up themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you are a writer, where would you recommend them posting their fic for editing first?
Oh, for editing, there's a bunch of different groups. I'm not a writer, so I can't speak for how well these groups work.
It's been in the
there's-
fandom for years and years, has not written a single
I
word.
have a story.
He
It's
has.
not
He just
published.
hasn't published it yet
will make
because
you
it's
cry.
so
Is
amazing.
this
It
the
will
one that'll
make
make you
Pab.
cry?
This is the one that'll make you cry. There are groups like Looking for Editors is one. El Dorado has overly extensive editors. I have no idea how active that thing still is.
I don't know if this is still active, but the training ground on PonyChan, or I think
It's
they
MLP Chan.
they moved to
MLP
MLP
Chan.
Chan
Pascal
now.
would know that.
Yeah.
If you can stomach the chans, the training ground's actually really useful because it gives a lot more like direct, personal sort of reviews in there.
And it's really nice. I mean, assuming that the community is still active and healthy, it is kind of like a give a penny, take a penny kind of thing. So you can, you know, be giving a story, and then as an author, you can, you know, also kind of do some fledgling editorship.
And authors helping authors, because that is huge, and there are a lot of people involved in it. But fair
Equestria-
disclosure, the people giving the reviews in Authors Helping Authors are the average FinFic user. So take that with a grain of salt.
The other place to look is Equestria Daily's Editor's Omnibus. The very first page is sort of editing group
Yes.
resources
Yes.
that can help you out.
I believe there's a section in that in Eason's writing guide on FinFic as well.
Yeah, absolutely,
somewhere.
under the
Yeah,
fact. For like actually posting a story online, I really like Google Docs because of the comment feature.
Google Docs is fantastic.
So you
It is
can
the
just,
editor's
you know,
best
litter a
friend.
document
You can
with
do comments, you can grant permissions, you can put in suggestions now.
Recommendations, yeah.
So it's just so convenient.
Google
Yeah.
Docs is fantastic.
Don't feel the need, obviously, that you have to go to a group. If you see someone, just a lone person who says they're an editor and they're just open to people coming up and asking them, don't be afraid to go up and ask them for
Give it a shot.
editing.
And definitely it's worth asking your friends and saying, you know, hey, would you mind taking a look at this?
And people have had success too with just going to, I know some people have asked The Descendant and
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
Which was
I
surprising.
admire your writing, can you give me some tips on this story I'm working on? And once in a while, one of these authors will say sure and
Yeah,
give you some
absolutely.
advice.
Yeah, it's definitely, if you want more ideas for writing stuff, it's worth contacting the people you like. And I mean, again, it's just, you know, be polite.
Cast some nets out. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Hi. So earlier you guys were talking about compatibility when editing, and I found this is something that's really important to find an author that you're compatible with. So what kind of dialogue and questions do you ask an author who's coming to you for editing to sort of feel that out and see how that is?
I think the easiest way to find out if you're going to gel with a author well is first of all to just read their stuff, right? Read their stuff, go through it, see if it's like a writing style that you think you could appreciate, that you could work with, and then have a quick look and do a little bit of editing. Take it slow, pay attention to what they're doing, and see, would this annoy me in 3 chapters?
Yeah.
And if the answer is
Yeah.
yes, just say, yeah, I think I'm going to have to back out. You know,
Yeah,
just
I
take
mean,
it slow and look around.
As difficult as it can be to go, thanks, I know I said I'd take a look, but this really isn't working for me. It's, you know, be polite. Generally, people will accept that.
As a bit of a specific example, I actually had someone approach me for editing who's since become kind of a friend of mine, and like the story that he gave me to look at, I just, I went through it. I saw that it was a story that I didn't hate. I wasn't absolutely in love with it, but I didn't hate reading it. And I did know that I could, offer him advice on it. There were things that he could improve on that I could tell him. So, in that sense, we were compatible.
Yeah. As much as I would wish that there was some easy way to tell if you're going to be able to gel with an author before you get involved, there really isn't, unfortunately.
I mean, it's just like any sort of friendship. There is chemistry. There is, what kind of insight you can give on the story, and if the author finds that valuable and really likes to work with you. I mean, some of the people that I've written for, or edited for, rather.
Written for.
I've written, I've written.
Clearly, you've become a
I've edited them
ghostwriter.
so heavily that basically I'm a ghostwriter at this point. No, but
You're the one who wrote My Little Brony, the book.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, confirmed.
Confirmed.
Working with them, they're like, I really like that you offer, this, I have a team of editors, and Pav, you offer this specific insight, and I really like
You're the
that.
greatest, Pav.
Yeah, he's the greatest Pav.
I'm the greatest. I'm the only one. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, just having that established, and you just gotta try it out and see what works.
Hello there.
Hey.
I have a question for you guys. Well, actually, two questions. But
Okay.
the first one is, I have this story out called Wayward Friends, and I wrote it a very, very long time ago. I actually started writing it back at the beginning of end of season 2.
Okay.
So it's been quite a while. My writing style has improved a lot since I worked on it, and I've always been slightly galled that I got one really bad comment early on, and it's not so great. It's not the thing I'm most proud of, that being out there. And I'm wondering, how much is it worth to go back to an old story that you've had around for a while and edit it and try to make it better? Is it
I'll
better
give
just to
a
let
real
it go?
example. The user Aquaman, he keeps the first couple of stories he wrote up on FanFic to remind himself of where he came from and to never do that again.
It is good to have previous examples, because at the very least, then you can look and go, hey, look, I got better.
Yeah, that's where I started, and now I'm here.
And
Start from the bottom.
I can find myself in a very similar situation that I have a long-running fic from November 2012, and I am deathly embarrassed of the first few chapters of that, and especially as a long-running fic, I can be like, am I turning off potential future readers because they'll see a chapter update, they'll start in chapter 1, and they'll just be like, oh. But at a certain line, it is a compromise, because you have to understand that any time that is devoted to editing those early chapters is time that's taken away from writing new chapters, and you are allowed to grow as a writer. So
Yeah.
Also, it's worth noting that going back to editing the first few chapters can be a slippery slope to never writing another chapter again because the previous chapters aren't perfect. There's always going to be a way to make the first couple of chapters better, but you need to be able to let go and say, it's good enough. I can move on with it. I'm happy with it as it is.
Yep.
I just want to write more stories. So.
Yeah.
The problem is that you're always improving as a writer.
Yeah.
So it'll be, if you have a 50-chapter story and you start fixing up chapter 1 and go up to 50, by the time you hit chapter 50, you go, oh, wait, I've gotten better, and then you can start from 1, and then you just
Yeah.
get this vicious cycle.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what was your second question?
Yeah, and then my second question really deals with looking outside of just our little lovely fandom. How much overlap do you think there is between our critical community and other fandoms' communities, and is there anything that's an equivalent? Because right now I'm working on, I have good ideas for pony stories, but occasionally I have good other fan fiction ideas, but I don't really see the sort of critical community that I'm used to working with.
It's
You know,
worth
here
noting
and other
that
things.
FanFic is fairly unique, I think. I
Yeah,
think
it's
it's
very
basically the only
distinct in
specific fanfic, or one of very few. Most communities who want to write stories about their favorite fandom sort of things rely on fanfic.net, which is the literal worst place for critical commentary.
the user
No, it's not.
interface
There's
was
also,
designed.
Wattpad.
Oh, well, there's one place which is worse, and that's Wattpad. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
But no, I mean,
One
I
Direction
think
crossovers.
that while there isn't really as much established right now, I think that it is getting better. A lot, like the Stephen Magnet community is really starting to fill
Stephen
in.
Magnet.
Steven Universe.
No,
Stephen Magnet community.
that was not a gaffe. I meant what I
Okay.
said.
Clearly.
What a world! What a world!
Oh my.
Well, while there is some overlap, it's important to know that other fandoms and just, normal fiction, the concerns are weighted very differently.
Yeah.
A great example being that in our fandom, we love writing about the main characters,
Yeah, I was gonna
whereas
mention
in
that.
most fandoms, the actual canonical text is
It's
a
God.
relic. You are not allowed to touch it. If you
It's
write,
so strange.
like for Harry Potter stuff, if you write about, Harry going and doing something in between the books, people will
They
threaten to
will
burn you at the
murder
stake.
you. Oh,
You're allowed
God.
to write it, Harry and Ginny's kid going off and doing stuff,
Or
but you're
some
not
other
allowed to
Hogwarts
touch
kid,
anything
yeah.
that's actually been canonically confirmed.
It's very strange. And like,
Yeah, it's very
ver-
odd.
during the first few years, it's not so bad now. During the first few years of the fandom, if you had an OC, no one would care.
Yeah.
Like no one would read your story about
It
your OC
just-
who lives in.
You'd write it and you put it out
Stalingrad.
there and it would just sink to the bottom.
Yeah, because it doesn't feature rarity.
It doesn't feature Pinkie Pie or Twilight, and nobody else wanted to read about them. And that stigma has mostly gone away.
It's getting
Certainly-
much better.
Yeah.
I think that's the short answer. It's getting better.
It gets better.
Writing a story based off of Ranma 1/2. Like, it's a really old series. There's not a lot of fans around, and it's been a while since I've looked at it. So I'm like, okay, characters. I don't
Yeah. Ranma 1/2 is also fairly flexible because it was sort of one of those, I will write until it gets boring, and then I'll add new character, and then I'll keep going, and they just kind of did that until the author got sick of it and stopped.
Thanks.
Okay,
Next
we're apparently
question.
running out of time, so we should hurry up.
Oh yeah, 5 minutes.
How much time have we got left? Five-ish? Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Then I will be quick.
Sweet.
Okay. As an author, how can I let my editors know I appreciate everything they do because I kind of have taken the advantage of them? How can I let my editors know I appreciate everything they're doing for me?
Tell them.
Put it in the
easiest way-
story synopsis, put
Yeah.
it in an author's note, and just say thank you to these people because they really helped me.
Just tell them you appreciate them. Say, I really appreciate you doing this. I love that you guys, stick around and help me out despite the fact I threatened to murder you or something.
The correct answer is to write a story about
I
them.
promise someday I'll let you out of my basement and you'll have real
I
food
want
again.
Professor Plum stories.
Well, I mean, you're joking, but I mean, it could be something as simple as like offering them a free story commission or something like that.
And
Yeah, if you're
working them into
comfortable with
the
that.
Austro canon.
Yeah.
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 But yeah, the simplest way to let them know that they're liked is first of all to thank them, which is Second of all to, as Pascal was saying, let people know they exist.
Yeah.
Like blog posts,
Yeah.
author notes on the story.
Big thanks to my editor, Paveria.
On the
Yeah,
main page, just state it publicly
Yeah.
that they helped you.
Yeah.
Because it can feel like a bit of a thankless task at times,
Yeah.
But even just like that short little mention on the author notes, I mean, the editor will notice it. The editor will appreciate
And
it.
you just get this warm, happy glow.
Yeah.
Yay, they noticed me.
I did good.
Senpai noticed.
Oh, here we go.
Your Majesty.
Oh, geez, do we have to have these two?
So a lot of pre-reading, reviewing, and editing seems to assume you have knowledge of how to write. So how does someone who doesn't write get into all of this?
Read things twice.
Read a lot of stuff, because neither Plum or I are actually authors. We purely fell into the reviewing and pre-reading end of things and never actually started writing stuff.
Yeah.
So it's
Like-
really, it's just read stuff, talk to people.
You're not required to be able to write to be
No.
able to read things properly. Like you don't have to understand the rules of soccer, or to be able to play soccer, to understand the rules and to understand that what the goalie did was bloody dumb and he's an idiot.
I freely admit I despise the phrase, those who can't do, those who can't teach.
Yeah.
Because in all honesty, being a teacher is a heck of a lot harder.
Yeah. All right, come on in, bad horse.
Hi, I wanted to mention what I think is sort of a fair way to find your editors, because the way of I'll send an email to an author that that's kind of troublesome, right? And what I did is read a lot of stuff by people who are critically recommended, like in Seattle's Angels or something, and aren't really popular, and interact with them. Find people who are as popular as yourself, have as many followers as yourself, or fewer, who you discover are really good, and interact with them and become each other's editors. And
So basically, your advice is to read more Seattle's Angels posts.
That's a part of it, but if you work your way through FanFiction as a social network, you find the people who you mesh with. You will find those people, and they will become
treating
We're
it
in the
as
same situation as you.
this really is a community, and it really is about talking and interacting and
Working together.
Like
Friendship is magical.
Sappy moment, but all these friends who I've made through reviewing, through
We love you too, Pappy.
But just go out there and talk, make some friends.
Yeah, it's.
Have some fun.
That's the simplest way to find editors and stuff. Yeah.
Apparently, yeah.
Believe it or not.
No,
There's not enough death threats on the show to be like proper reviewing.
No. There's none of, oh my God, the reviews are due in 2 days. Who was supposed to write them?
Use that reformation
I think
spell.
they're dead.
C-squared.
Oh, you mean that guy who's never around?
Yeah. Rip.
Okay, so we're out of time, but thanks everyone.
If you want to find us, we're often in Quills and Sofas.
Yes.
If you're not already aware, and if you've been to any of the writing panels, we're all mentioning this, but we do have Quills and Sofas, which is just down way at the end of the hall, and then make a right. It's like
If there's
by the
anything you want to
cosplay
talk
area.
about editing
Yeah, you
or